But I want to dive a little bit deeper into what happened at this NEA conference, and I think what tells us about the state of public education, in case you had any doubt. So let's just start first and foremost with their Teacher of the Year, which I think tells you a lot. Her name is Ashley Crossan from Pennsylvania, proud union member, English teacher, 2025 National Teacher of the Year.
I started paying attention once I realized how deeply political our profession had always been. I knew I could no longer stay on the sidelines. So I got involved, I found my people, and my people helped me find my voice.
It's deeply political, so that's why I'm getting involved, not to better the education of students, not to better the academic outcomes, but because this is a political profession and I need to use my voice to political ends. That's the Teacher of the Year. Great. All right, so let's hear a little bit. I want to get to a local angle on this in just a second, but there was also this kind of, I don't know, panel type thing. And this just shows you like how radical these teachers are. So this is a teacher named Tina who showed up at the NEA conference, basically saying it's not enough to wait for kids to go to college to be radicalized, which they're just acknowledging that that's also happening. We've got to start the radicalization sooner.
I'm Tina. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. Lifetime member of the Teaching Assistants Association, which is an AFT. I'm also a lead steward in the Madison Teachers Incorporated because I left higher education and work in a high school now. So everyone who raised your hand and said that you got radicalized in college, imagine if you got radicalized 4 years earlier. Okay?
Woo! Imagine if you got radicalized 4 years earlier, how much crazier you'd be now as an adult. Oh my God, then everybody woo in the background, just wild. Okay, a couple cuts I want to play from the head, Kim Anderson, who's the head of the NEA. And this whole speech, and again, so you could argue, you know, there's a lot of good teachers out there who aren't politically far to the left, but when you have the head of the NEA, when you have the NEA voting on new policies like calling Trump a fascist and supporting students who want to protest against Donald Trump and immigration raids, you have unhinged stuff like that guy up there with his keffiyeh on wooing at, yeah, we need to indoctrinate kids 4 years earlier, when you have the Teacher of the Year being celebrated for her commitment to politicizing the job, and then, of course, the head of the NEA, who is absolutely obsessed with Donald Trump. Of course, had to bring up Project 2025.
Project 2025 told us this administration would flood the zone with countless rollbacks of policies that are designed to make us safer, healthier, more prosperous, and more free as a people. They want to spread the pro-democracy coalition wide and thin, dividing us up into narrow factions, assuming that we'll only fight to protect the interests that are closest to us.
Which you will.
Spreading us too wide and too thin to mount a collective defense. That's their theory. Chaos theory is designed to weaken opposition to the regime in power.
Good God. No, it's that they're doing so many things because there's so much dumb stuff happening in the country. And the federal government's trying to tackle all of it. They're trying to fix the immigration system. They're trying to get DEI out of our schools and out of our government. They're trying to stop boys from competing against girls in high schools and in college. They got so much stuff to do because y'all were so unhinged for the last really 8 years plus that they've got to spread themselves thin to cover it all. And this whole idea that they think we'll only fight for the things that impact us, that's all you're going to fight for. You're only fighting for people who agree with your ideology, for the far left. You're not fighting for the parents and families and children who go to your school who support some of the policies of Donald Trump, who maybe, you know, they're struggling financially because their parent can't go to get a good job because they live in an area of the country where there's so much illegal immigrant labor. I mean, you're not fighting for all of your kids. You're fighting for the kids that align with your ideology. It's very, very clear. She also talked about how cruel Donald Trump is.
Cruelty. How many of you are working with students who fear that their parents will be snatched up off the street? Raise your hand. How many of you have students who don't have enough to eat at home? Yeah. Well, delegates, this big, bad, disgusting bill that passed the House 2 days ago pours more money into ICE and strips money out of food assistance programs. ripping children away from their parents, letting kids go hungry. This is beyond cruel. It is immoral.
Good God. So cruel and immoral. So that's the head of the NEA speaking to a room full of teachers that are then going to go do what with that information? After they've been spun up into a frenzy about Donald Trump. He's evil. He's cruel. They're going to go back and they're going to teach their kids that. Not their kids, your kids. They're going to talk about Donald Trump and how evil and cruel he is. And they're going to encourage their kids to organize and to protest. The NEA bylaws now say we support in every way students who want to protest against fascist Donald Trump. All their materials are going to call him a fascist because they say that that's the accurate description of what he's doing. So now teachers are going to say, well, it's perfectly fine to call Donald Trump a fascist. And you know what happens from there. We just had the shooting in Texas where they have materials saying fight fascism. And they showed up with rifles and body armor to shoot Border Patrol agents. I mean, the indoctrination that has led to these violent tendencies of the far left in our country. Those people, you look at the 10 people who face federal charges now for the shooting in Texas, they're young. Most of them look like they're in their 20s. They're fresh out of high school. And these are the kinds of people who are indoctrinating them in those ideologies and making them believe, starting at a young age, that they're fighting fascism and everything. It's not just Donald Trump, everything conservative, everything Republican. It's all hateful fascism. They're bigots, they're racist, they're transphobes. And then we send these young people out into the world after 4 years of that. And what do we expect? And that they think they're victims and everything's owed to them. God forbid they're not white. Then they'll leave thinking, well, I'm never going to get ahead. It's wild stuff, you guys. I don't know how we turn it around at this point. I mean, I definitely support parents pulling their kids out of public schools, but I know it's not feasible. And then you got Bob Ferguson, the governor, who talks about how wonderful our public education system is and how boys should compete against girls and all this stuff. He's sending his kids to an elite private school. So he has school choice because he has the money to have school choice. Well, he's forcing you to keep your kids in the indoctrination camps that they've created. Man, it's absolutely crazy. And there were, of course, local educators, some of the worst that we've highlighted on this show, who were down at the NEA meeting, including DJ Breimer, who's the president of the Tumwater Education Association, the Tumwater Teachers Union, which, of course, we have talked a lot about the insanity that is happening in Tumwater. But you take one look at his social media, and you see exactly the lessons being taught at the NEA and how that fits into now what he preaches as the head of the teachers union for the Tumwater School District. You might recall we featured him on our show previously because he put up a post that seemed to be in direct response to an interview we did on this show with a female athlete, Frances Stout, who sat out her final game of the year because she was being forced to play against a biological boy. And so then he takes to his social media and makes some vague statement about, hating trans people, basically, which very clearly was an attack on a female student who had just very publicly stood up for herself. And these are the kind of people. And then they go to the NEA and they're surrounded by people just like them from across the country, teachers who encourage them that this is right, this is moral, this is just. We have to, as teachers, believe this stuff, fight against Trump. We have to help students organize against Donald Trump. I'm really worried about this generation coming up. I think there's a big split. I think you have some in this younger generation who are being radicalized in a good way. Radicalized in the sense that they've grown up, especially young white kids. Frankly, I'm just going to say it. A lot of young white men, cisgender, straight white men who've been basically painted as the enemy for their entire teenage lives. Oh, you have white privilege, you have cisgender privilege, you're a white male, you don't know anything about what it means to struggle, you're the enemy, blah, blah, blah. So they're like, had enough. And they're just like, okay, now I absolutely love Donald Trump and Republicans and conservatism and traditional values, and I'm going all in on that. And then you've got this other group of people who have been told you're the victim, the world is out to get you, you're special because of your gender identity, you're a special little prince or princess, we're going to handle you with kid gloves, everything should be given to you. And then they go out into the world. And you got those two factions of young people, and we think this country is going to become less divided? Holy smokes, you ain't seen nothing yet. And the people to blame are unhinged, ideologically driven adults. Doing this to kids, sending them off into the world with that. Either with a grudge, feeling like I've been beaten down because of the color of my skin and because I'm cisgender or whatever it is, or going out into the world thinking they're owed every single thing, and anyone who says anything against them or doesn't support them 100% and give them not equality but special treatment is an enemy. Just wild. Teachers, man. I'm sorry. And I know there's so many good teachers. I don't ever want to come across, like I have so many good memories of teachers Kathy Martin is a teacher that comes to mind, who is just such an important person in my life growing up. And I could name Mr. Burnside. I could name a bunch of teachers, Mr. Marcourt. And you remember these great teachers in your life, and I think every student has them, and I think every school has them, even in crazy places like Seattle and Portland and Tumwater and Olympia. But man, more and more, I never remember any of this in school. And I'm really not that old. I mean, I graduated high school in 2006. It was like 20 years ago. None of this stuff. I mentioned my teacher, Mr. Marcourt. He was literally a state lawmaker in Minnesota. And he never brought his personal politics into the classroom. He made a point not to, because you just didn't do that. You're there to teach kids. And they've lost track of that. They think their job is to politicize their classrooms and to teach these young kids the right way of thinking and living. It's disappointing. I feel bad for the good teachers who are stuck in bad school districts in a state like Washington.